Hello, future designers and developers. Oh boy, I'm so excited. Hey, if you take a look over here, this is our next project. We are creating a tip calculator. So what we can do on this, we have got an input area and an output over here. So let's say that we had an awesome dinner and it was a costly one. We really balled out. It was $400. $400. And let's say that the service was pretty good. So we're going to give a 20% tip. And the number of people that were eating, well, there were 3 of us. So if I calculate the tip over here, we get our total per person. Each person owes $160, and then our total tip is $26.67. So this does include the tip. This is just so we know how much per tip we gotta chip in over there. Cool. So let's get started. In this video, we are going to be covering the HTML of doing this. We're going to break this up into chunks. So let's go over here. We've got our HTML, and let's start with a container. So we're going to have a div with a class equal to our container. And inside of the container, like I said, we've got 2 different areas. So this is going to have 2 divs, one that is called inputs and one that is outputs. So our we're going to have a div with a class equal to inputs, and then we're going to have another div that has a class of outputs. So we've got inputs. I'm just going to copy this up, paste it over here. This is our outputs. Cool. So we've got inputs and outputs. Inside of our inputs, we are going to have a couple different things. Firstly, we're going to have our bill input. So let's label that. I'm going to throw in a paragraph. Don't really need a class on this, but this one right here, we're just going to say bill total. Cool. And then underneath that, let's have an input. This one is going to have a type that is equal to number, because we're looking for a number. And we're going to give it an ID. We'll have the ID be total bill. And then we also want a placeholder. So we're going to do a placeholder that is going to be equal to bill total. So we've got bill total on the outside and bill total on the inside, but that's all good. Cool. So we've got the input over there. Now the next thing that we're actually going to have, we're going to have a quality of service selector. So how great. Oh, also, forgive me, I'm writing so small. Let me zoom in on this page. There we go. This is a little bit easier for y'all to read. Hopefully that works out better. All right, cool. So we've got our input over here, and then after that, what we're going to have, we are going to have our quality of service. So let's do another paragraph, and here we're just going to write out quality of service. So this will say how much we should tip based on whether or not the service was good. Cool. So we've got quality of service, and then I'm also going to throw in a div with a class equal to tip buttons. Let's change that just to make it a little bit more CSS-like, less JavaScript-like. So inside of this div, we're going to have a whole bunch of buttons. Cool. So we've got our div with our class of tip buttons. Inside of this, we are going to have several buttons. So let's go button. Each of these buttons are going to have 2 classes. So the first class that we're going to give is going to be the tip amount, and then the second class is just going to be a general tip button. So let's say this is going to be tip, and we're never going to tip less than 10%. So we're going to say tip 10, and then we are going to go with tip button. No, that's too close to. I'm just going to do tip amounts because it's too close to tip buttons. We're going to keep that a little bit different. And then inside of this, we want to say 10%, and then we're going to close this up with a slash button. Cool. So this is our first button. We are going to have 4 of these. They're just going to be in increments of 5%. Generally, in the United States, rule of thumb is that you should never tip, or good service should get 18%. But me, I'm a generous tipper. I know on a teacher's salary, I really can't afford to be doing that. But, you know, food service industry is tough. When you're working with someone's food, yikes. All right, so we're just swapping these out, getting it up to 25%. So we now have these 4 buttons. We've got 10%, 15%, 20%, and 25%. So we're going to be able to swap out our quality of service over here. All right, now the last thing that we're going to do, I'm just going to steal this paragraph tag and throw that over here. We are going to have the number of people. So let's say number of people, and then we're going to have another input with the type of number. I'm going to grab this. Let's throw this in. So instead of calling this total bill, we're going to say number people, and then placeholder, say number of people. Cool. So these are all of our inputs. We've got our bill total that we can type in here, and you can see it's got this little increment thing too that we can count up on numbers. We've got our tip percentages, and then we have also got the number of people, how many people we'd have there. Cool. So that is the first half of it. That is our inputs. Now we're going to have another div, which is our outputs. On our outputs, we have a little less that we need to throw in here, but still a fair amount. So when we go over here, oh, actually, we forgot something on our inputs. We need to have a button that says calculate. So at the very end over here, let me grab this button over here. Cool. We'll throw this in. This button over here, we're going to give it a class of calculate. And then we are just going to type in here, we'll do all caps, calculate tip. There we go. We got another button. I am just going to be lazy with my HTML and throw in a BR, so now I've got the button over here. Cool. All right, so now we've got our calculate tip, we've got the number over here, and now we can go into the outputs. On our outputs, we've got a couple of other things. We're gonna have, I'm gonna make this a little bit more important, we're gonna do an H2, and this one is going to say total. So it's gonna be our total, H2. All right, and then underneath it, we're gonna have a paragraph. And this one is going to just say slash per person. So we've got per person. All right. Then we also are going to have over here, we're gonna have tip per person. So we're getting our total and we're getting our tip per person. And that's what that looks over here. But now we also want to place in some placeholders for this. So we are going to throw in a paragraph, and this I am going to give an ID. This first one will give an ID of total bill. Is that what we named our input? I want that to be the same. We did total bill up and down. We're going to say total output. Here we go. And then we'll do the slash P. And this, we're going to throw in some values right to start. So we're just throwing in 0, 0, 0. Cool. And then we'll grab another one. After person, we are going to change this. Instead of total output, we'll do tip output. All right, cool. So now this is it. It looks pretty boring, but I don't want to spend all of my time and all your time doing CSS, though you will have to do the CSS on your own. But this is enough that we can get started. We're going to have to do a little bit of CSS so we can tell which ones we have selected inside of our JavaScript. But that's going to be it. Cool. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you in the next one.